Tom Scioli, author of Jack Kirby, The Epic Life of the King of Comics. I am Stan, a graphic biography of the legendary Stan Lee, and Jack Kirby's Star Warriors, The Adventures of Adam Starr and the Solar Legion.
I'm Matt Zioli.
Megaforce, like when we were doing G.I. Jonesing
Yeah.
and like reading the first issue of G.I. Joe, there was the big ad on the back for Megaforce.
Yeah, G.I. Joe, a Hasbro joint. Megaforce is a Mattel product.
Okay.
And there's a legend that like Hal Needham, one of our favorite directors.
Hal Needham, yeah.
We love Hal
Needham, and we've talked about, and his connection to toys. We talked about
Yes.
the Gabriel toys, Hal Needham's stunt set.
Which we need to track down.
Yeah.
Send it our way.
Yeah.
The legend is Hal Needham was trying to get the rights to G.I. Joe.
Okay.
To a movie. But what I've kind of done some like detective analyzation, and I'm pretty sure it's a Mattel competitor. Like
we were talking about that before when we were doing our G.I. Joe episode, and then I was kind of looking into it, and I couldn't find any kind of smoking. There were people saying like, oh, this really feels like a G.I. Joe movie, and then there were people saying like, oh, I heard this was supposed to be G.I. Joe, but he couldn't get the right, but I couldn't find any kind of like solid, like it just seemed like hearsay.
Yeah. This was going to be a television series originally, and Hal Needham, he could have tried to get the G.I. Joe rights, but because G.I. Joe, the comic and the toy line launched in '82, and I don't think it's a coincidence. This movie came out the exact same month that the comic premiered, the toy drop.
Well, that's what I was wondering about, because the timing. I was looking at the timing. They come out at the same time, so similar. They have like their secret underground base.
Yeah,
and it's
hit alert.
It's like, and I'm like, what's going on here? Because and the timing is so close that it's like, is this like Swamp Thing and Man Thing? Is this one, or
like a Deep Impact Armageddon?
Yeah, or is there some other influence, like some other thing that predates both of them that they're both drawing on that like we're not aware of? Because again, I thought like maybe I was like, well, G.I. Joe is kind of Larry Hama's portion of it or whatever kind of began as like a Nick Fury Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. riff. So I thought like, oh, maybe they're both kind of doing a Nick Fury Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. riff, but it's like, I don't know, like the underground, the pit aspect and stuff was like, it's too one-to-one, yeah. And
so Mattel's involvement, they design all the costumes. Mattel is in the credits as build. They like, it's not a person, it's Mattel. Costumes by Mattel, and they did the toys. So
you said they're like super pricey, and are they like Matchbox car kind of stuff?
They're Hot Wheels, Matchbox car sized vehicles. There was a Starlog. Those vehicles were designed by Mattel too. They designed the vehicles
with all the zigzags on them and stuff. Man, that is, it looks like some great 70s toys. Like doing all this like Micronaut stuff. It is that
Isn't
like,
it like
I mean, it's 1982, but it is like that 70s aesthetic of like like a vehicle with a bunch of wheels and then a radar dish on top.
Yes. Yeah. And like, I mean, G.I. Joe, obviously they ate its lunch, but in the Starlog article, they were supposed to have action feet. Like, how are you going to compete with G.I. Joe
if you don't have little guys?
If you don't have figures.
And they all have these like cool uniforms and stuff.
Yeah.
So like, just getting into like Megaforce itself. So I've been aware of this movie forever. Like I've seen the ads in comic books and stuff like that. I've seen the posters, but I never checked it out. It just seemed, it seemed to me like just like, oh, it's another one of those sort of like straight to video, kind of like shitty 80s like sci-fi thing. I thought it was more of like a Road Warrior kind of thing. I thought it was like a post-apocalyptic kind of thing. Just and then you were saying, oh no, it's like kind of like a G.I. Joe thing. So then you managed to score the DVD. So,
I think Hal Needham was supposed to this failed at the box office because it came out the same month as Wrath of Khan, The Thing, Blade Runner I think all those movies came out the same month. I mean,
that was a good month for the movies.
But
not a good month for
Megaforce. Burt Reynolds, I think Hal Needham wanted Reynolds in the Bostic role.
Sure, that's what I was thinking. Like right off the bat, I was like, "Where's Burt Reynolds in this?"
He should have been the fucking lead for this.
Burt Reynolds is like, "Hey, Hal, you can do my stunts, but I'll be goddamned if I'm gonna take orders from you."
He was in the iconic. Hal Needham did Smokey the Bandit.
Yeah.
Cannonball Run, Stroker Ace, Hooper. So basically, like Reynolds and him, it's like the Cliff Booth, Rick Dalton
Yeah, how come Cliff Booth hasn't directed anything? You know, when we talk about the merits of it, like we watched this movie. Like I had never seen it before. I'm assuming you've seen it.
I only saw I never saw it when I was little. Somehow I didn't even see it by accident, and I didn't know its existence till I was like in college.
Okay, well, like I loved it. I loved it. Like I was blissing out. Like I was
great.
in I was enraptured by it.
It's fucking awesome.
But I get what, and from the beginning, all the way through. But I get why this didn't do well in the theater, because it's not like, it's weird. Like it's one of those movies you kind of like. It's got all these charms to it, but it's not. It's not, it's not delivering. Exactly, it's not delivering the beats. I think I think you could re-edit this, because I think structurally, there's like a way you could reorder the scenes to like really build to something. You know how like with Star Wars, they talk about how Marcia Lucas re-edited certain parts of, like, changed the order of the scenes in like the first half of the movie, and then through editing created a countdown for the Death Star trench, where it was like that thing of like the Death Star getting closer and closer to where they're going to obliterate the base on Yavin, was entirely created in the editing room. It wasn't part of the script. They didn't. That's why you notice most of the stuff in it is like voiceovers. It's not like Princess Leia saying, "Oh, the Death Star is coming close. It's going to blow us up." It's like this electronic voice saying all of it. So
that's genius.
I feel like you could do that with Megaforce and make like a hands down blockbuster.
Yes,
that, like,
the Total Recall edit.
The Total Recall edit of
Megaforce.
Yeah, you just need a little. It needs a little bit of that, but it's so much fun. And yeah, Barry Bostwick. Like he
Helmet Hair Hall of Fame.
I mean,
for the recall or feathered hair.
He like,
what's he got in there, Tom?
This movie has like a tone, and Barry Bostwick is like a Will Ferrell character.
Yes,
like he's not trying to be credible or like what. Like he is just kind of like got this like amazing hair, a scarf, and stuff, and just kind of mugging for the camera.
There's a scene where he's in silhouette. He like holds his hand like it looks like his dick. And I think in an interview he said he did it on purpose.
He is. He's like goofing around. He's not. But we got Devin from Knight Rider, playing sort of like a Devin role, and then we got the one guy who's like the Southern guy. Is he the guy from Xanadu?
Yes.
Okay, he's the guy I recognize.
The Warriors.
The Warriors, Xanadu. Was he also in The Apple? Was he in The Apple?
I think so. He could have been. Yeah.
Okay, like I'm
not positive.
Very familiar, but yeah, Xanadu. He was in a couple other things. So it's like you have this secret military team with these like, and they refer to them in like the box art and the posters and the campaign as like superheroes and stuff. They have these like flamboyant costumes, and then each character is like a character, you know, and it's like, it's so G.I. Joe.
Well, I think G.I. Joe,
and he even looks like he looks like the action battle arm grip G.I. Joe. Like he looks like the G.I. Joe we didn't grow up with. He looks like those like the big G.I. Joe, the action where they have like the beard and stuff, and the
he has
cloth.
hair growing action. It like spurts out of
it's making Will Ferrell faces and stuff. Oh, Will Ferrell was on Conan O'Brien podcast, and I was listening to it, and he was talking about how he did a Lifetime movie with him and Kristen Wiig, where it was just like a regular Lifetime movie, but it's like him and Kristen Wiig, and the idea was that like you'd watch this, like, okay, when is something funny going to happen? But like they just play it completely straight, which makes it like even funnier. I was watching a little bit of it. It does
wait
the
to
trick.
Watch this.
It's called like it was called like unlawful dangerous adoption or something. But it was really good. What I saw of it was really good.
Watch that.
But that's kind of like he's doing. Will Ferrell went to the Barry Bostwick School of Acting. Like he watched Megaforce and just does that in all of his roles.
He's totally mugging, like, because the G.I. Joe figures that came out in '82, they're more grounded. Yeah. I think the later '80s G.I. Joes, like Megaforce, the later G.I. Joes kind of like were doing direction. Like Megaforce style, like over the top, like.
Yeah, because I was kind of they have their like motorcycles and stuff and their vehicles and stuff that have this like these like lightning bolt kind of these like symbols on them and stuff. And I was kind of thinking like, what would this movie be like if you did like just give it like a GI Joe makeover where like they're just green or whatever. And like I don't know how it would work. It's interesting when they're in that ready room and then there's like the holographic.
I love that.
And then they're doing the simulators, the tank simulator and stuff.
There's a lot of and they have the countdown clock later in the movie too with Henry Silva is like the.
I wish I would have seen this before I did Transformers versus G.I. Joe, because there's like a lot of like, there's some overlap there too, because there's like a scene in this where like they're flying over the mission area, and then like the vehicles start driving out of the back of the thing, and then parachute down and stuff.
It's so awesome.
I did that in Transformers versus G.I. Joe too, so it was kind of cool seeing it here and watching them kind of like bounce when they hit the ground and stuff.
Dude, the desert driving scenes are epic. Like they have like 50 vehicles like across, like driving.
Yeah, he was going for like a Lawrence of Arabia kind of thing. And hell, Needham, like it's all these like practical stunts, and it's like great having a guy who comes from like a stunt background doing like a movie, and like because again it's all credible. It even had some of like the Super Sentai stuff where they've got different colored smoke.
I love the smoke. And then even like kind of mask stuff too with when he drives the motorcycle rocket up into the flame.
Yeah, like
I was in heaven.
Now,
Tom.
That's one thing I gotta say, a thumbs down I give to this DVD release, because the menu has like a little, like as you're loading up the menu and you have your options, it has like a quick little montage of the movie, and it goes almost immediately to this scene where he's riding on a flying motorcycle and going upside down, and it's so outrageous, but it's like right there up front, and like when that moment comes in the movie, I'm like, I wish this was more of a surprise reveal, because I would have I would have lost it if I didn't know this was coming. And then he's on the motorcycle, these little wings pop out, and then and like it's not enough to just have him like flying in this thing. Then like he's gotta go woo. It's like
I clapped.
It's the end of every episode of Pee-wee's Playhouse where he's like in that on that little scooter.
It'd be like, I think they had to destroy a bunch of Star Wars DVDs because The Empire Strikes Back one during the menu, it kept replaying, Luke, I am your father. They're like, shit.
Yeah.
Why don't we use that scene? She's in Star Trek The Motion Picture.
Okay, because there's like a romance, but maybe I missed something. Like maybe I was getting a snack during this, but I don't remember like the romance kind of clicking into, like I remember like a lot of flirtation, like kind of like James Bond kind of, like a lot of like James Bond innuendo that they're throwing back and forth, but I didn't see like it click into like, okay, these two are a couple or whatever, and then he's going off on the mission and they're doing this like thing where they kiss their thumbs at each other and stuff.
Every time I see Barry Bostwick in a different scene here, I think I'm watching like I Was a Teenage Werewolf, because I know mid-transformation.
I know Barry Bostwick as the dad from The Parent Trap 2. That's what I know him.
I first saw him as the mayor on Spin City with Michael J. Fox.
Okay.
So he's doing like 150 episodes. Like he's got comedy chops.
Yeah, he's doing like this, like he's doing a comedy superhero. Like he's doing Megaforce is like Mario Puzo's Superman. It's got the tone of what the Mario Puzo Superman was gonna be before Richard Donner and Tom Mankiewicz got involved. It's got that where it's like we're just having fun here. It's a goof, and the action scenes are action packed and fun and cool. But it's like, he's winking at the camera. Yeah,
it's great when you have like the premier stuntman director of like the 70s, 80s directing your movie.
Yeah, that's one thing that I wish, like in all these like epic scenes where there's like a million vehicles and they're all coming at each other, I just wish there was a little more like cutting to close up, or a little more of like mini dramas within that big sweeping thing that we, just to that's what I'm saying about like a different edit, because it's just, you're just watching this stuff from a distance and you're not like involved the way you would be if like
I know,
you know what I mean, like,
and like and that doesn't happen like when we do the Total Recall edit, we'll shave some of the fat too off because there's a lot of like walking around.
Well, I can imagine like Hal Needham being like, okay, we staged this like amazing sequence with all this stuff. Like we got to show every foot of every frame of it. It is just pure gold though. It is like really fun and
yeah. 20th Century Fox distributed it, and it was also funded by Golden Harvest.
It's interesting that you say like Mattel was involved in the production because that's like, okay, it feels like American Sentai or something because that was like the Sentai series were like basically they get together with the toy company and the toy company designs what the vehicles and the robots and the costumes are going to be.
Yeah.
And, like right off the bat. So like it's like it's
like a
synergy.
team up.
Yeah.
And they didn't compete with G.I. Joe directly because they didn't have the action figures that they promised. It was a Starlog article where they talked about Megaforce action figures.
But it is funny that they do bring so much of what G.I. Joe is to the big screen. Like G.I. Joe was a toy and it was a comic book and it was like an afternoon cartoon, but they do a movie, that hits all those same notes and somehow this is like the flop and G.I. Joe's
the hit.
And I love the whole setup for the big mission.
That's a great shot.
Because they're going for that is a nice shot. The colors and the silhouettes. And again, it is a comic, but like the color, like they're doing superheroes because like the colors are just so bright. They do the setup for the big mission and they're like, it's a 4-minute mission. And it's like, wow, these guys are good. Like they can do all this stuff in 4 minutes. Like, but then I was thinking like, wait, so like the climax of the movie is going to be 4 minutes long, or but like you kind of know that like, okay, something's going to go wrong. It's going to be foobar and stuff. I also like that all the things that go wrong, like there's such a perfect super team. All the things that go wrong in the mission, none of it's their fault. It's like it's the politics and the higher ups. You know what? We got to get Larry Hama on the show, and we got to interview him about Megaforce.
Yes.
Just ask him like, okay, what do you know about Megaforce? And like, okay, if you weren't aware of it prior to doing G.I. Joe, like what was your reaction when you saw it? Did you take any inspiration from it? Because I feel like later G.I. Joe stuff kind of feels a lot like this.
Yeah, like I was reading something where they were like, we got the ad on the G.I. Joe comic that you have.
Yeah.
They were heavily advertising this how
could they not be aware of it? And for the early G.I. Joe issues, they're taking inspiration from like all kinds of from like Pac-Man and from Raiders of the Lost Ark and all kinds of stuff. So like, how could they not? How could they prevent themselves from taking inspiration from this thing that's advertised on the comic? But again, like maybe there was some editorial thing of like, okay, guys, no Megaforce riffs. Okay, this is like we got Hasbro, that's Mattel, so like we just can't have like you can be inspired by Raiders of the Lost Ark, Close Encounters, whatever you want, but do not be inspired by Megaforce.
I had a Megaforce. I didn't have the official one, but like the dune buggy like model looking car.
Mm-hmm.
They Hot Wheels kept that and used like repaints of it through the 80s, and I had because I was like looking at them online, just a non-official Megaforce version.
Yeah. Well, one of the vehicles in this is basically the Oz Striker.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, that's the one.
It's also interesting seeing like because these scenes, there's like it really like it is an army. Like there's way more like. There's just a fleet of all these vehicles. And so, like, even on G.I. Joe, even like the G.I. Joe cartoon or whatever, at its most ambitious, when there'd be all these ships flying at each other, it wasn't like, there weren't that many of the same vehicle, but this is like just this like fleet.
And like, I want to see, and they had the, air support too.
Mm-hmm.
I like when the huge planes like fly really low, like really great practical stunt work in here.
Who's this actor who's kind of plays Q?
I can't remember that guy's name. Like,
yeah, because he looks real familiar. He looks like he would play Truman Capote or something.
Yes,
he looks kind of like that. But yeah, Devin is great in here, and that was also like a thing in like the G.I. Joe comics where they just wouldn't have the support from the higher ups, and so the higher ups would always be screwing them over, and like Devin kind of screws them over, and then I like at the end, like it's also it's kind of like low stakes, like it's lighthearted, like everybody's laughing, and when he has his confrontation with like the enemy leader, like it isn't, you know, they're not like shooting at each other, or it's not, they're not screaming at each other's faces. They're kind of like goofing around and stuff, and like kind of.
I love the vibe.
Yeah, they're like goofing, and then even when he's like gives them the kiss off at the end, it is like they are just goofing around, and it's like he'll be back next. Like it wouldn't be what would happen with like Cobra Commander or something.
Yeah,
you know?
like
they kind of like pinch each other's nose when he's like, he gives them the big F. He gives like the bad guy the big F. Like it does feel like those other Needham movies. Like it feels like something that like Burt Reynolds would be.
Oh yeah,
where he's like, you know, goofing around with Buford T. Justice or something. You know?
Yeah, like Burt Reynolds would say something to a character and then spike the camera.
Like there's not going to be a scene where Burt Reynolds gets a machine gun and then just like executes Buford T. Justice. You know, it'll be like, you know, his pants fall down or something. You know what I mean? Like it's like that, and that's how this is. It's like they'll humiliate each other. They'll try to, you know,
like Buford T. Justice will come out of the bathroom with like toilet paper in his pants and stuff. Or he looks like Will Ferrell again. Like there's a lot of everyone looks like Will Ferrell in this.
Well, what's like Devin looks from Knight Rider. I forget. I don't know the name of his character in this, but he looks so much like Peter O'Toole, and he probably was like when Lawrence of Arabia came out. People were, you know, and he was like younger. He was you know, probably close. You know, he's probably close to Peter O'Toole's age. Like when that came out, people were probably like, "Are you Peter O'Toole?" Like he probably leaned into that. That was like his gimmick or whatever with the ladies. Like he'd go to a bar and like he wouldn't say he's Peter O'Toole, but he wouldn't say he wasn't. You know,
Devin, he complains off camera. He's like tired of acting opposite of somebody with their shirt unbuttoned. He's like, he's like, all I can see is like Hasselhoff navel.
2 years later, or a year, I guess 2 years later, he's gonna be with David Hasselhoff. Yeah, opposite David Hasselhoff doing the same stuff. We need a Peter O'Toole type, or we need TV's Peter O'Toole.
Yeah, he's Tom. The thumbnail for this has to be Hal Needham's Lawrence of Arabia.
Yeah,
something along.
If you just packaged this in a box that said, you know, G.I. Joe the movie, 1982 G.I. Joe the movie, and then maybe just like edited in to the credits, just like a quick like G.I. Joe credit, and then just kept the whole rest of the movie the same, like nobody would know the difference. Yeah, it is so G.I. Joe.
Yeah, you take out, just dub over the word Megaforce, and you got it.
And like the guy, you know, Barry Bostwick, like he looks like rock and roll from G.I. Joe. So it's just like G.I. Joe, but rock and roll is the leader.
You know what? They don't even have to dub out Megaforce. It could be like they had the Tiger Force.
Yeah, G.I. Joe Megaforce.
G.I. Joe Megaforce.
I mean, there's a Power Rangers Megaforce, and I think there probably was some kind of G.I. Joe Megaforce at some, like a, you know, I wonder, that would be interesting if they like kind of swooped in and we're like, okay, you guys aren't doing anything with this name.
You got to ask Larry Hama's like, back in '82. How much was Megaforce on your radar?
Wouldn't that be so funny, like interviewing somebody who's got this whole career and all this, and like you're interviewing him about something he had nothing to do with, and just what he thinks of it.
When we have Larry Hama on, we only needle him about
Megaforce. Yeah, he's worn.
He has hundreds of issues of G.I. Joe
under his belt. We don't ask him about one. Credits. We're just like, so Megaforce, what do you think of?
Yeah, I'm like, were you hearing any rumblings about Megaforce?
Yeah. Well, you know what?
That would be so on brand. I love it.
Megaforce is kind of like G.I. Joe without the ninja stuff. You know, like if G.I. Joe had no ninjas in it, it would be
Megaforce.
I'm
just still laughing at Larry Hama only getting in the interview. G.I. Joe isn't mentioned once, just Megaforce.
I mean, it's a shame there wasn't a sequel to this, because there's like, you could go any direction, and these little glimpses you get of the different characters. There's like the two guys who are throwing the knives at each other as they're waiting.
Oh yeah,
waiting to go down. It's like a team of weirdos, and then there's like weirdos among the weirdos. And again, that's like why I wish, like, among like in the big battle stuff, if they just would have like cut to these guys a little more and had some kind of little dynamic going or a story going, because it, you know.
Yeah, what if one of these guys is Snake Eyes without his mask?
Yeah, because it's got like the Snake Eyes like dropping out of the plane kind of stuff.
The Rubik's
Yeah,
Cube.
everybody's passing around a Rubik's Cube. That's pretty cool. You know, the hot off the press.
I was about to say
Rubik's Cube, a hot item.
What if Megaforce was the debut of the Rubik's Cube? Like,
Mattel's Rubik's Cube. It also feels a little like what you were saying about a TV movie, like the music and stuff. It feels a little more of like a TV movie than a theatrical release. Even though it looks like they spent a lot of money on this movie.
Oh, they did
in terms of the stunts and stuff.
It had money behind it, and 20th Century Fox distributed it, and this was part of Golden Harvest's production package. They produced Blade Runner and then a movie with Tom Selleck. It was like High Road to China or something.
Okay.
I haven't seen that one, but it was like it was part of the Golden Harvest wave of production.
And then there's the line at the end where he's like, "The good guys always win, even in the 80s." I love that kind of stuff, And it is because it is like, okay, the 80s, things are tough. It's the 80s, like, it ain't the 60s anymore, like where you can just goof around. It's the 80s, and it's a darker, grittier era of the 80s, but even in the 80s, the good guys win.
Yeah, and they probably filmed this in 81, so they got the whole decade out in front of them.
Mm-hmm. The 80s beckon.
Look at this mission.
Yeah, when they're dropping all the equipment down, and they're dropping the I could just watch this movie over and over again.
It's so good, and
the shame when they're parachuting down. And they're parachuting down with all their equipment, like all the ATVs and stuff, are parachuting down. It's a night scene. So, I wish it were lit a little better. Like, I wish they would have done some of the creative lighting where you could kind of see. Because you just see this, blob of stuff kind of coming down. But it is it kind of lines up with Transformers versus G.I. Joe. And I can say it wasn't an influence on me, because I hadn't even seen it. So maybe it's the same thing with G.I. Joe. It's just the timing. It would just be so
What are the odds?
It can't. I mean, it couldn't have. There couldn't have been we worked with Hasbro on this for a little while, and then they decided to take what they want. It doesn't feel like that,
My thoughts are, I feel like somebody at Mattel knew G.I. Joe was on the way, and they wanted to do their thing.
Had they heard rumors about the pit, because that's the part that kind of blows my mind, this underground base and stuff. But I don't know, maybe that was just a logical place to go, or again, maybe there's some other thing that had a pit, an underground base, and they're each doing their riff on it. I mean, I don't know, Dirty Dozen or something is there an underground base? I guess you had. I guess
that is literally the pit. It's too close for comfort.
We think about the influence of Star Wars and stuff on this the early 80s and late 70s slew of sci-fi movies. But I mean, James Bond was just this kind of ongoing kind of stuff. So I mean, there were underground bases in G.I. Joe. I mean, in Bond. Man, look at that motorcycle.
Isn't this awesome?
Yeah. It's these guys on motorcycle and jumping over stuff and hot dogging and showing off. And
look at these weapons.
Yeah, they were saying a war movie for kids. What this is.
Yeah, it's G.I. Joe Megaforce.
Yeah, the little radars going. I guess somebody could use AI or whatever and give it a G.I. Joe makeover.
Yeah, when the thing's flying around or driving around, it just has the G.I. Joe logo on.
This also reminds me a little bit of Battlestar Galactica.
It does.
Battlestar Galactica predates this, but it does feel like some of those Battlestar Galactica episodes, partly because where it's we got too many actors, we got too many characters, and we got to give them all something to do, and there's just not enough to go around. See this stuff? Look, it's all parachute.
Yeah, I wish we could see you're right.
But that was a key part for me in Transformers versus G.I. Joe is they're not even going to have time to land. They're flying over this robot planet where there's just sensors everywhere, so everybody's just gotta drop out of the ship while it's in air.
Oh,
and motorcycles parachuting down, and then this is
isn't this
totally
so great?
Yeah,
I like really the red lights.
So I'm Tom Scholey, author of Jack Kirby: The Epic Life of the King of Comics. I am Stan, a graphic biography of the legendary Stan Lee. and Jack Kirby's Star Warriors: The Adventures of Adam Star and the Solar Legion. I'm also the creator of Witchman, a new superhero comic book, which recently had a successful Kickstarter campaign.
I'm Matt Zioli.
And yeah, we'll see you next. Like, we'll see you for Megaforce 2.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what? I want to do the comics adaptation of Megaforce. I don't know if there ever was one. But
I don't think there was. That is the best news I've heard all day long. Holy shit!
Let's put out an inquiry into the comic book rights
to Megaforce. There was going to be a movie sequel that got squashed. I was actually trying to search around to see if there was a script
yeah, we
around
could read it. We could read it and act it out, make an animation. Oh, so when they have the that's a pretty cool gimmick. We're going on a 4-minute mission. That kind of stuck in my head. And then they have a little countdown clock going in the corner for the 4-minute mission. Which also, Transformers versus G.I. Joe has a little countdown clock going, you know.
Great minds think alike.
Yeah. I guess that's the lesson of Megaforce and G.I. Joe is the great minds think alike. He has his girlfriend. They blow each other kisses with their thumbs. And on the cover art, the poster, you know, it's like a James Bond kind of thing. She's kind of like draped on him or whatever. But then when it's time for the mission, she doesn't go on the mission. Like, they're like, oh, you know, you can't go. Like, this is too dangerous. Like, no, like, I don't think there's any women on the Megaforce team, which is a big mistake because they all have these like tight jumpsuits and stuff, and lots of like male camel toe, like lots of like
huge action packages.
Yeah, more so than David Bowie in Labyrinth. Like you're seeing like where it's like, okay, one nut is over here, one nut, you know, but it's like maybe this would have been a hit if you know, they would have let some ladies go on the mission to get like Catherine Bach from the Dukes of Hazzard in there or something.
Yeah, in the Lady J role.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I noticed.
Like, why are they making her sit on the sidelines? Like, what a shame.
Barry Bostwick's package rises and falls throughout the the movie. It's like a sundial.
Yeah, it's just like there's two, like there's like this seam, and then there's one on each side, and then there's like a little something like pointed up. Like maybe that's why he's got that like goofy look on his face.
They had to cut 15 minutes of footage because there was like he pulls a reverse Ritter where his dick is actually sticking out the top of his shirt.
Here's the other thing. Here's the other G.I. Joe 1-for-1 is like they're riding around in these vehicles that are shooting lasers. You know, they're not shooting like a bunch of ammo out. They're shooting lasers. Pew, pew.
How Needham cameo.
Okay, there we go. Yeah, and he's the control room guy.
Yeah.